Welcome to the Helper Be Brave podcast show, where we have great ideas on how you can help save lives. I'm Amy Ford.
And I'm Jessica Russo.
Today, we're going to be talking to one of my favorites. I feel
we
like
literally
we say that about a lot of them.
But they're all our favorites.
I know, for sure. But it is one of our very own Embrace Grace alumni. I mean, it was probably from 10 years ago that Sweet Bekah was in my group. And I just remember she was a little older than some of the other moms. But she was like a mama bear herself. Like for the other girls, they would kind of open up their heart about what they were, struggling or with whatever. She always had like the very sound wisdom, and she's a natural, and she has a very powerful story.
Yes.
You're going to want to hear this. It's stuff that you can't make up, just pretty awesome. And so
be prepared.
There's going to be a book written about it.
Pay attention.
Pretty sure. So, all right, let's bring her on. Hey, Bekah.
Hey, how's it going, Amy?
Good. We just kind of talked you up, and we love you so much, and we're so proud of you.
Yes.
And just even recently in the last few weeks, I've been talking so much about you to our staff, and there's been a lot of new updates in your life, which I love it, and we'll get there. But let's start with your story. And, I told everyone that you shared your story at our gala a couple years ago, and you had a standing ovation. And so we'd love to just hear some of that again to all of our listeners.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. And I just love you guys so much too. Love watching what God is doing at Embrace Grace and through you, Amy, and the vision that you've really carried out that He handed you. So it's exciting to watch. And that's kind of where our stories intersected, was because I needed an Embrace Grace group. I, had a mostly normal childhood, but I wound up having some issues with my family and running away from home at the age of 17, and had no idea what I was getting myself into. I thought I was running away from overly strict and religious parents, and what was waiting for me on the street was something I wasn't prepared or expected, at all. And I wound up meeting a nice guy who told me I could live with him. And I had no clue what intentions he really had for me in the form of my dignity and my body. And he forced me into prostitution the second day after I met him with several other girls. And, I had no idea what to do. Of course, I thought about running, but I was in a really unsafe area, and I thought I would probably get raped and murdered, and no one would ever find my body and know what happened to me. And so I stayed and did what they told me. At one point, I thought I was getting away, and I ran into the arms of another man who would turn around and abuse me and exploit me all over the country for the next 10 years of my life. And for me, I wasn't able to get away until the federal authorities became involved. I actually wound up serving 13 months in federal prison for conspiracy to commit tax evasion because I was too scared to tell on my trafficker. When someone beats you where you have blood pouring out of your face and they constantly threaten you and they follow you, you believe them when they say they'll kill you. And so I served the 13 months and wished life got better then, but it didn't. I actually still went back to him once I got out of prison. He was dangling carrots over the phone every day while I was locked up for that 13 months, making sure that he was offering me all kinds of rewards and good things because I was doing my part. And, I had no idea that he was just continuing to manipulate me and make sure that I did not work with the federal authorities and turn evidence against him. And so I eventually got out in 2009. And like I said, I wish life got better then, but it still didn't. At that point, I'd been arrested 10 times. I had a federal felony. I had literally no idea who I was. I had been told who I was by other men for my whole life at that point. And I was terrified, to be honest. I mean, physical freedom doesn't equal emotional or mental freedom. And he had put $1 million of debt in my name. I was a high school dropout. I only got my GED because the federal prison made me. I, had no job experience. So it's like, what was I going to do with my life? I had no hope for a future that didn't revolve around my body being sold to men for sex. And so I stayed in the life for a while and kind of went through one dysfunctional relationship after another. And eventually I moved, I wound up using drugs and just, I was really floundering. I was obviously depressed. I now know that I have complex PTSD, but of course back then I didn't know that. And so I was just trying to make it and just trying to survive and just figure it out. And that led me to Las Vegas, of all places, to get clean off drugs. I was in a really toxic relationship in Dallas and knew I had to physically get away from the drugs because I was just so unhappy and I hated using them. And so I moved to Las Vegas and met someone else, and he was slightly less dysfunctional. And, you know, he at least helped me get out of the game, is what we call it, a life of sexual exploitation. He helped me get out of that. He helped me get clean off drugs. And about a year into that relationship, living out there in Las Vegas, I found out I was pregnant. And that for me was a huge wake up call, because you see, as a victim of sex trafficking, I didn't have compassion on myself. I felt like I had made bad choices and that I got what I deserved. And I wasn't willing. Like I said, I didn't have any hope for a future that didn't revolve around my body being used. And so but when I found out I was pregnant, that was, for me, now I had something else growing inside me. You know, I had a little baby inside my belly that I wasn't willing to let a day of his or her future look anything like my past. And so I called my family back in Texas and I moved back home January 7th of 2012. I was 30 years old. And like I mentioned, with all those barriers, all that debt in my name and having really no identity, you know, at all. And I had to start over with nothing. You know, one of the first people I met, actually, when I got to town, I wanted to go to church because I really felt like the Lord had gotten me to Texas. I wasn't working and I didn't have any money. And once I found out I was pregnant, I just started feeling this tug of the Holy Spirit to start praying, because I was raised in church. You know, but I knew that kind of rules-based God, not the God that wants a relationship with you and loves us even in our brokenness. And so even though I was facing all that, and here I had a little baby bump and I was in church with no ring on my finger and I thought I'd be shunned. And one of the first people I met was Pastor Samantha Golden, who quickly introduced me right after that service to Amy and to you, Amy. And I remember walking out into the lobby of church and calling you right after a Saturday service on that same day, January 7th. And I called you from that lobby and I heard your sweet Texas accent and I was like, oh man, what am I getting myself into? But it was obviously so fun. Embrace Grace was one of the first places that I got to go to for healing. And slowly the scales started falling off my eyes. Eventually I was able to identify as a trafficking victim. And it was only through the help of one of my best friends, another trafficking survivor. And she asked me a pivotal question one day, and it really let me see that I didn't have any choices. You know, that those weren't things that I wanted to do. I never woke up one day and said, I want to be a prostitute or I want to take my clothes off for money. Those are things I was manipulated and controlled and forced into doing. And so that was a really hard thing, you know, to finally understand and grasp. And so I began receiving even more healing, you know, once I actually processed what had happened to me, and, you know, I finally had compassion on myself and not just that little baby inside my belly. And of course, after my semester at Embrace Grace, I had created some amazing connections, but also walked away having everything I needed for my son. And it really gave me time to explore, like, what am I going to do with my life? And I wound up going back to college. I actually graduated, or my bachelor's degree, graduated summa cum laude with my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. In 2016, I started school the semester after my son was born. He was born in the summer of 2012. And I earned my bachelor's degree, and then I rolled right in and earned my master's degree in 2018. And today I actually work with an amazing woman, a philanthropist, and we fund organizations that are fighting sexual violence. More recently, I was the executive director of a nonprofit that is a direct service provider for trafficked women locally in the DFW area called Valiant Hearts. And I get to stand on a stage today with all my clothes on, number one. But I also get to share, you know, because I've chosen to give it to God, that He gets to use it and He gets to make it beautiful and not just this ugly mess and this hell that I survived on earth. That He gets to use my story to help other people. And help law enforcement better understand victims. I train probably 5 to 10,000 people a year on the topic, and, getting to help other victims realize and overcome that hurdle of self-blame and realize, like, no, I never chose that. It doesn't matter how many bad decisions I made. I didn't deserve that to happen to me.
Wow.
Girl,
That's a lot.
no matter how many times I hear your story, it makes me cry every single time because you are just amazing.
I know. I'm giving
So
you a
strong.
standing ovation in my heart. Like, so awesome. And I'm just so thankful and glad that God allowed us to like have a small part in that and in your journey. And just, I mean, thinking about also like the church during that time, that was kind of your first time back into church. And what kind of support as a single mom did you, I mean, obviously Embrace Grace, but you kind of got connected in even beyond Embrace Grace. Like, did you get like good support? As a single mom, you're walking this alone. It's kind of crazy. You had your parents, but still it's a hard journey. What kind of support did you feel from the church during that season, and what kind of impact did that have on your life?
Man, our church, it's still my church today, Gateway in South Lake. I never thought I would have liked a mega church, but what I found to be true was it felt like home. And I also found that because it was a larger church, that then they had resources that they could actually be the hands and feet of Jesus on the ground and have programs like Embrace Grace. Another program that I benefited from, they gave me a car. I mean, I started over like, not even from scratch, but from less than scratch when you think about all the debt in my name. And so I had no hope of being able to finance a vehicle, buy a house. I'm proud to say that today actually I'm a home owner and, recently bought a car as well. But, back then in those moments, like, how was I going to go to school? My mom and dad aren't wealthy people by any means. And so getting a car, being blessed with a car, it was like a little Volkswagen Passat, and it was a stick shift, which I actually knew how to drive a stick shift. And that thing had like 200,000 miles on it, but man, it got me everywhere I needed to go. And it became an asset, that I had, my first real asset, that I was able to sell when I was ready to get rid of it. And but beyond that, the grant program, Gateway had a grant program for single parents that while you're going to school, as long as you comply with, you have to keep your GPA up and hold a certain amount of hours in college. But they paid up to $1,500 of all my bills every month. Like that was, man, that gave me independence, as a 30-year-old woman going through this and, this kind of situation. It was so hard to not have any independence and be, living with my mom and dad. But I had lived with them since I was 15 years old. And so getting on that grant program allowed me to get my feet under me. And it's such a critical time of my son's childhood that we'd have those sweet memories together of being on our own. And Mending the Soul, that was another huge benefit. Mending the Soul is a wonderful workbook. Anybody that hasn't heard of it, it is a novel type of book as well as a workbook. And man, it was so impactful being able to go through that. It's designed to be done in a small group, and it's like heavy.
It's like freedom ministry, like really getting to the root of things and lies you've believed about yourself. And I know at Gateway there's always a waiting list to get into that because it's so awesome for mental health, for inner healing, all of that. So good. I love that. Okay, well, tell everyone the newest news because this is it's like can it even get any better? Yes. And it gets better.
And there's more. Are you looking for a way to get involved in the pro-life and pro-love movement? We have the perfect place for you and would love to invite you to join the Embrace Grace Revival Alliance. Come be a part of this group of passionate monthly donors, joining us on the exciting mission to help women with unplanned pregnancies be brave in their choice for life. You have the opportunity to play a vital part in providing single and pregnant women with spiritual, emotional, and physical support, saving lives of mamas and their babies, both physically and eternally. Visit www.embracegrace.com/donate to learn more.
Well, on December 23rd of last year, 2020, I was granted a full pardon by President Donald Trump, which was, I can't even describe. Amy, you got to come to the party to celebrate with me just a couple weeks ago.
Amazing.
It was honestly like the first time I've ever really celebrated something like that with a group of people because, I went obviously a decade with no birthdays, no holidays, no family. And so getting to have that moment to celebrate like this kind of culmination. And as you know, Amy, Mark Parsons, the guy that followed us across the country and investigated us for years.
That was my favorite part.
There. He actually helped me get my pardon. Like,
I was wondering how that process worked. So is it like a petition or something that you send the president, or he does, I guess, on your behalf?
Yeah, it is a really lengthy application, and it actually took me about 4 years to get.
Wow.
And it was a horrible process, horrible process. It is designed for people that are truly guilty of crimes and that are sorry for what they did. And obviously, in my case, I was forced to commit those crimes. I should have never been convicted in the first place. And so the process just isn't built for a victim, right? The process is built for someone that is a criminal offender. And so I had an amazing pro bono attorney, and every time the United States Pardon Office would come back with 2 more pages of questions, it was like, what was the last drug you used and how much did you use? Or, when's the last time you performed sex for money? And just really triggering questions. And it was just like, man, look at what I've done with my life. Like, can't you see what I'm doing with my life now? Isn't that enough? And then, God did it, honestly, Amy, because Heather Fisher had held the highest office in the land in human trafficking. And I got connected to her through our governor's office, and she's a fellow Texan. And we just hit it off on the phone, and I happened to mention not knowing if I was going to ever get my pardon or not. And she was like, what? Well, send me all your information. Let me look into this.
Goodness.
And a couple months later, I got a call from the White House.
Wow.
Oh, that's so incredible.
I know. And so she had a presidential pardon party, which was so amazing and over the top. Your boss went all out. It was bougie, amazing, totally awesome. But my favorite part is whenever you were, and I shared this at the party, but that whenever you found out that you had your pardon and that the news outlets were, wanting to get statements from you and interview you and all of that. It was such a great day, but there was one of your quotes that said, now nothing can hold me back. And I was like, oh my word. If she's been held back up
y'all
to this
watch out.
point, y'all watch out. Even as you were just talking about how the presidential pardon, application process, that it's not meant to be for a victim. I feel like whenever you were saying that, I was like, Becca's going to change that. Becca's going to do something.
You already know it.
Y'all just wait a second.
Y'all just give me a minute. On my beer. I got this.
So, I am going to law school next year, Amy. I'm putting it out there. It's the fall of 2022. I'm going to law school, and yes, I'm going to change some of these laws and help even more people.
So awesome. And what I love about about your story, and for everyone that's listening, it wasn't one person that just really helped you turn your life around. I mean, it was God, obviously, but also just all kinds of
whole community.
It was a whole community that came around you. You just mentioned a pro bono attorney, grants from the church, a car, Embrace Grace. You got your baby items that you needed. You got the inner healing that you needed.
Even the detective that
that he
had all the evidence against you, and then he ended up being your advocate.
Right. And if the application process is so crazy, the fact that he even cared enough to take the time to do that, for you, it's so awesome. It's this is what kingdom looks like, just helping each other and helping her be brave. I just love your story. It's so beautiful. And I know this is just the beginning. You're going to have a memoir, autobiography.
Totally.
It's going to be awesome. And we are on the front row, And we're just like clapping our hands and cheering you on.
We've got big signs.
Yeah,
we love you. We're proud of you.
We're the obnoxious.
We've got the horn things. Like, we are so
we're the really loud, embarrassing ones that are cheering you on. So we are just so thankful for you. And so, okay, well, in closing, what are, you were talking too about just the trafficking, and to me, the trafficking is like, this is prevention. The anti-trafficking organizations that are helping these victims. This can be prevention. Getting them help and getting them back on their feet can help with future unplanned pregnancies. And so, what's a couple of your top few that people should check out?
Okay, well, wait. I just want to say something. I just want to point out just how our spheres of influence, right? How the areas that God gave us to serve, like how they are so commonly overlapped. So often traffickers intentionally impregnate their victims and use those babies as pawns against the mom.
That makes me angry.
I'm gonna do this. Yes, like I'm gonna do this to your baby. Or there's a friend of mine in Arizona. She was willing to serve 40 years for this trafficker because he had control of her 2-year-old son.
Oh my
and
gosh.
18 months into her sentence, her family finally gave up the son because he didn't care about the son. He just wanted to make sure she didn't tell on him. And so 18 months into her sentence, the family finally got the little boy. And then she was willing to work with investigators. And thankfully, in that case, she was able to get out. But just one example, traffickers will force their victims to have abortions. There's many different ways that traffickers manipulate their victims. And so there is such a huge crossover. And like you guys that have Embrace Grace groups, I encourage you to get more educated on this topic, because I can guarantee you, just like I came through Amy's group, this wasn't a sex trafficking group. Sex trafficking victims, or any type of trafficking, we don't run out going, I'm a trafficking victim.
Mm-hmm.
We actually blame ourselves for what we went through. And so it helps when other people know the signs and hey, well, asking those type of what would happen if questions, to remove that self-blame. So, but some really great resources. Is that where you were headed, Amy?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Just if anybody wants to check them out.
Yeah. So Shared Hope International is a wonderful resource. They're located in Washington, D.C. They have a ton of great content out. They have a couple of videos, some DVDs, even educating people on trafficking. I'm pretty sure it's either for a very low donation or free materials. People can come follow me at bekahspeaksout.com. I'm in the process of updating my website and trying to get more content out there for folks, but I would love to connect with anyone. And then the Polaris Project, so POLARIS project.org, is that's who runs the National Human Trafficking Hotline. And they also have some really great stats and resources that everybody can trust. And they have a really good report that I would encourage you to look at. It's called the 25 Typologies of Trafficking, because there's been more than 25 different types of human trafficking that exist that have been identified in America today. And so it's really important to understand what it looks like in your community. It's not just, a pimp having a prostitute out on the streets. That's not the only form of trafficking. There's 24 other types.
Wow, that's good to know.
Yeah, that is all super. I'm going to write that down and check that out for sure. Bekah, thank you so much for just everything. I'm just so proud of you and so thankful that even in your vulnerability and sharing your story to so many people, and even the education side of things, the inspiring side of things, you give people hope and to keep going and keep trying and to get connected to community. And we just can't wait to see what God's going to do.
Now that you're not held back.
Now that you're not held back. I'm doing air quotes here. But we love you, and we're so thankful for you. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on our show today.
I love you both, too, so much. Thank you.
If anyone on this planet were to be classified as a world changer, that is Bekah.
Oh, I know. And even at our presidential party, there were some trafficking victims that had come and just shared. Everybody kind of got a chance to share about how Bekah's made an impact on their life. But there were some trafficking victims that shared, she was sitting next to me in my court cases, and she was standing on behalf of me and giving me help and guidance and counsel. And she helped me through, this really hard season of these girls that are coming out of the industry. And I mean, they were young, old, like it's amazing how her tenacity and grit and the fact that everything felt against her, but yet she kept going. It's just beautiful.
Oh my goodness.
Totally
I can't
amazing.
help but just cry. Like, I'm trying not to cry right now.
I know, it's awesome.
Just the testimony of like her entire life.
Yeah.
Like every obstacle, everything that was done to her, everything that she put herself into. Air quotes if you're not watching us. But she has overcome, and the willingness to like surrender it to God and to allow others to come into your story to help you. Like the humility of it, because it's hard when you feel broken to allow people to help you or to pour into you or to give you a card because of pride or whatever else. But like you have to be willing to allow others to walk with you. And like she has been an overcomer at every step, and she is literally going to save tens of thousands, if not millions of lives.
I know. So
with
cool.
her story. Oh my goodness.
And I love too, like all of the people that had a part in it. Like, I just wonder if some of these people, like the person who randomly donated a car, do they know who they like, like what that generosity helped do and how that act of generosity is helping, like what you said, save thousands of lives.
Or the tithers at the church.
Yeah.
That
or even the pastor.
Made it possible for her to have a grant to be able to go to school. And
right. The donors.
She's literally changing the world.
Right. And it takes a village. And
Oh my goodness.
we hope that kind of gave you some ideas. Like even, just having some kind of single mom program at your church is so powerful, where they can access resources or people, or like she said, the pro bono attorney, or maybe it's a pro bono counselor, or doing things like Mending the Soul, the inner healing, all of those things, all of that played a part in where she is today. And so if we can have resources like this at our churches, makes a huge difference and helps people get, accomplish their dreams of what they want to do. So I'm inspired. I'm totally excited about what God's doing in her. And I hope you are too. And I hope that gave you some great ideas. And also, if you need more, just go to helpherbebrave.com. And there are lots of ideas. You can grab my new book, Help Her Be Brave, Discover Your Place in the Pro-Life Movement. And it has over 300 ideas of how you can get involved in the movement. And then also you can take a quiz. If you're still not sure, take a quiz. It's on our helpherbebrave.com, and a custom idea list gets emailed to you that is just using your strengths and gifts to just know where to start, where to get involved. And also listen to this show. We have great ideas.
We have
every
genius
single
ideas.
week. This is season 3, and if you're just starting, like, go back and listen to all of these great shows. You can listen through a podcast, iTunes, and Spotify, or you can listen watch on YouTube. So check us out, leave good reviews, and share with your friends, subscribe, all the things. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.